more, I want to maybe open up the floor if you have questions. And I know there's a mic there. Maybe some of the staff there can help and support. But if you have questions, really happy to kind of answer questions that you may have. Because I know it's not often you get to speak to someone from Meta. So I really want to kind of give you the opportunity and if you have questions. So yeah, I want to open up the floor.
Yes, just kindly raise your hands if you have a question and Sean will bring the mic. You can introduce yourself as well.
Bulavinaka Roy, my name is Liliana, and thank you for the presentation. It was really informative and it was just enough, because I think there's a whole lot of stuff that we could learn, but I think that was just enough for today.
Yep.
I have a few questions. So first one is in regards to fake accounts, right? So as we're getting closer to elections, we see a lot of our candidates and leaders have fake accounts created under their name. And so we've had some instances where we have reported it, but I'm trying to understand what the process is, because we found it doesn't come down straight away. We've tried to get a number of us report it. So can you please help us understand what happens in those cases?
Okay, so now that you know the support team, I would encourage you to use that support team. So what would be good when you report these is, I mean, give the URL, of course, of all the fake accounts that you're seeing, the individual URLs, but also provide the official page URL or account, right? So all of you should have official presences, and so it helps to kind of ensure that we are taking down the right account, but also we can compare it between the real one and the fake one. One key thing is that, sometimes we have gotten reports from politicians of fake accounts, but they're not really fake. Sometimes they're fan pages, right? They're fan accounts, they're fan pages that are supporting the politician. And so, if they're not impersonating and speaking or pretending to speak in your name, that's not something that we can remove. But use the support team. I think the support team will be able to help you, and especially from because they handle government and political partners. There's a bit more nuance to some of the reports, so they should be able to help in a better way.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's useful. Also, you didn't talk about the blue tick. Would you recommend that that's something that we have for those pages?
So yeah, when it comes to the blue tick, I definitely do recommend if you can get it. So there is a certain criteria for verification, right? And I mean, I don't have all of it listed here, but of course, first of all, the profile and all that section needs to be populated. Profile picture, profile banner. You need to make sure that your page category is aligned to who you are. So if you're a politician or political candidate, you want to make sure your page category is exactly that. It needs to be of your name as well. The page needs to be your name. Sometimes you have XXX for a certain region. You can't have that. It just needs to be your name. But I think the criteria that a lot of people fail is the notability criteria, right? And so notability, basically you need to be highly searched figure in your case, and usually of course if you're a current sitting MP or government minister, generally you're notable. But if you're a brand new candidate, if you're a brand new person that maybe has not been in the news, then that is a bit limiting and you may not meet the criteria, unfortunately. So it really depends, and so every page will have to be reviewed. But when you can use the support link as well, and you can request. I would encourage you when you request to include any key news links, whether or not it's local news links or overseas news links where you've been profiled, you've been covered. If you have a government profile as well as a minister, as an MP, under a government parliament website or what, that would help as well. So include all these relevant links, and it helps our folks to kind of review it in the proper way. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. Just last question. You talked about the frequency of posting and how we, could start with 2 to 3 times and then aim to go daily and multiple times if we're at an event or something. What about stories? How important are stories versus posts?
Right. So I haven't talked about stories because on Facebook, stories is not as popular right now. But any of you, I mean, if you are specifically talking about Instagram, then if Instagram is part of your strategy, then definitely you have to be doing stories, because stories has overtaken feed on Instagram as the main way of sharing. So yeah, look, I mean, stories is great way to engage definitely a younger demographic. So I wouldn't say don't do that. I mean, there's a whole lot more I can talk about stories. Unfortunately, I didn't include it here. But I would say if you're really doing stories, yeah, continue to do stories. I mean, stories is a great way to engage as well, though maybe not as much engagement overall on Facebook. But there is definitely a younger demographic that will engage on it a bit more. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Roy.
Hello, Roy. This is Shalendra here, journalism lecturer at the University of the South Pacific. Recently, I was defamed on Facebook, something for which I have never been cited, let alone charged. I reported it to Facebook, but the response I received was that it does not breach Facebook's community standards or something of that nature. So I'm just wondering, what is Facebook's position on defamation? And is Facebook liable for defamation? It seems there was a judgment lately that does seem to make Facebook liable for defamation. Just wanted your clarification. But my main concern is, it is likely that candidates in the elections, they might encounter something similar. So how can we better protect ourselves? And how can we make Facebook take our complaints maybe more seriously? And I'm wondering about the operations in the Pacific. What kind of monitoring do you do in the Pacific region, Fiji included? Because as the previous speaker said, there are so many unauthentic Facebook pages, phony pages springing up all the time, especially close to the elections. By the way, thanks for a very clear presentation. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think it's important to maybe separate defamation. I'll talk about defamation. I'll talk about our community standards just briefly. So we have a set of community standards that help to kind of police what can and cannot be placed or posted on our platforms, right? And it covers anything from serious threats like terrorism, child pornography, to things like bullying and harassment, incitement to violence, and in elections in particular, things like voter interference, misinformation on voter on where to vote. So it's a whole bunch of different policies, and you can actually search for it. If you search Facebook community standards on Google, you'll find a link, and it's actually quite clearly listed out what we look at and how we police. So when it comes to defamation, oftentimes it's not a clear cut, it's some, especially when it comes to politics, it's one person saying something and another person saying another thing. And, it's hard for us to kind of judge and determine what is right and what is wrong. And that's why we use third-party fact checkers to help to kind of, review some of these. But having said that, we also have a defamation form that you can find online to report, if you find that you're being defamed. And there's a certain key details that we need. And so if you actually go on Google and you search Facebook defamation, I think it should come up quite close to the top, and that it is a defamation form that you can use. And basically you can report there based on the criteria or the information that we need from you. And what happens is that our legal teams will look into it and will review it, and if it is defamation or if it is against the policies, we'll take it down. There was a question on the kind of how we're looking at content and things in the Pacific. We do have a market team, or what we call a market team, with folks actually from the Pacific that know how to speak some of the languages, and they do review content every single day. So basically, reporting is very important. And so if you find things which are maybe bullying, harassment, inciting violence, any of those things, just report it. It may not always, violate, but reporting helps. We we do review every single report that comes in. No matter how small or how many people are reporting, it can be one report and we will still review it. And so, and especially during election times, I think the teams are on heightened alert to kind of review some of this content. We also do work with, partners on the ground to get more insights into some of the issues that may happen close to elections. And, it does inform us on how better to kind of, monitor the platforms as well. So that's just a very quick overview of how we look at, content defamation. We have teams that can speak better on this than I can, because it's not my area of expertise, but, hopefully that quick overview, gave you a bit more insight. Yeah. Any other questions?
Mr. Roy. As we go into the election, one of the issues here in Fiji is the spaces that are provided for women to voice their opinions in terms of mainstream media and other issues in Fiji. For the last 2 elections, it has been very minimal. And as we have undertaken a kind of a superstar model kind of election system, most of the ladies sitting in this room will be opening up their Facebook pages and will be trying to show who they are and what, trying to sell themselves as candidates. One of the biggest challenges is boosting, and fortunate for those who have credit cards will be able to do their own boostings or find partners to do boostings for them. Is there any other way, with regards to other women who are not so fortunate to have access to cards, to do their boostings in other payment system with Facebook?
If I'm correct, you can use payment solutions like PayPal, you can connect. I know PayPal works differently in different countries, but with PayPal generally, apart from cards, there's like bank account. You can connect a bank account and other options such as that. So that could be an option. But unfortunately, apart from credit cards or PayPal, I don't think there's any other option right now for boosting, because we do need some form of proper payment system, I guess. Yeah.
My second question is, and I'm sorry I'm posting this question to you. A few months ago, your office had a meeting with our election office here in Fiji. Should we be anticipating some sort of, system that's going to be implemented by Facebook in our election period in terms of our freedom of things that we post and things that we talk about from the offset from your meeting with our election officials?
Yeah, so I think generally, first of all, you're definitely privy to the laws of the country, right? So that's something to stick to. On our side, I think the only thing that apart from monitoring and violating our policies, I think the only thing that may concern you, and you just spoke about ads as well and boosting, is we have policies or we have our ads transparency tools, right? And I didn't have time today to talk about it, but basically we have policies surrounding ads on social issues, elections and politics. And so in Fiji right now, we enforce on political and electoral ads. And what this means is that if you want to place advertisements that is political or electoral in nature, and especially, of course, during your elections, you need to be authorized on our platform. So there are a few things that you need to do. You will need to, first of all, get yourself authorized. So you need to be based in Fiji. You need to show an ID that you're based there, and there's few authorization processes. And once you get authorized, you are allowed to place ads by creating a disclaimer. So you need to create a disclaimer stating who paid for the ad, right? So paid for by XXX, paid for by XXX organization or something like that. So you need to create a disclaimer to use in these political ads. And once you want to place these ads and you have created a disclaimer, there's a checkbox whenever you want to place these ads to kind of acknowledge that that's an ad about social issues, elections, and politics. And once you check it, you have created a disclaimer, you effectively can place your ad. And so when your ad goes out to the public, it will say, all ads have a sponsored. It will say sponsored and paid for by XXX. And so it's very clear about who's paying for the ads, very transparent. And it goes to what we call an ad library for an archive for a period of 7 years. So what happens is totally transparent to everyone. You can see what pages or what other pages are posting, what kind of political or electoral ads they're posting. You're able to see who's paying for it, based on the disclaimer. You're able to see the rough target audience, the rough ad spend of the ad as well. So all this is transparent to see for 7 years. So that is a key criteria to think about, especially coming to elections. I don't have anything to show you now, but if you Google it, Google Facebook ads on social issues and elections, that first few links will come up with the link, and go through that. That I would advise you, if you're thinking about placing ads, start the process now of getting authorized and creating a disclaimer. Start it earlier on, so that, because there is certain time, like I think there's like 72-hour timeline to get authorized, and then after that, another 24 hours to get your disclaimer approved. So that there's certain timing period to get all these approved. So you want to make sure that you get all this done ahead of time. The support link I gave you can help you with any questions surrounding this issue if you come into a roadblock. But yes, just if you're thinking about placing ads, that's the best way to kind of start.
So that means for our candidates, we have the $10,000 maximum that each candidate can be given from a particular person. So which means that through that system, transparent system that you've done, our government can access the exact amount of sponsorship someone has done to a particular page or party page. Eh?
Yes, they're able to. So it's transparent. You can do it. Press can do it. Anyone can see it. But of course, I mean, it's not Facebook's owners on Facebook to restrict you or up to that limit. So you need to make sure that you're keeping to whatever legal limit there is in the country. But yes, it will be transparent for all to see.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Royten, for your insightful presentation. Much appreciated. My question is more for clarification in regards to the feature on Facebook that is on the log profiles.
Right.
Yeah. So in terms of the log profiles, I see that some like people especially in the South Asia region, like us, they do have access to log profiles, unlike for those in the Pacific region, not for instance Fiji. So is it like a more of a position of like Facebook to ensure access for like people of respective regions to have access to for the in terms of accessing the feature of log profiles, but unlike for those in the Pacific region such as Fiji?
Well, I mean, we have launched log profiles in certain countries. That's correct. Due to certain potential issues, I guess, surrounding safety of women. I think that's one of the key issues that why we launched it in some parts of South Asia. I haven't heard. I'm not too sure whether we'll launch it for Fiji, but I think it'll be good to understand, like what, especially the room's concerns and what are your thoughts? Is it important that that's something that we kind of roll out, or I can bring it back to my team as well. I mean, and since we have a group of folks in the room, it'd be good to understand your thoughts on that as well.
Just on like a small, I think that would be like I mean, from my point of view, I think it would be like more like a deterrent for like in terms of hacking, or like in terms of like creating of like fake profiles with the photos and so forth. So I think it's quite a good feature like from what I've like observed. So like
Sure.
I just thought to like bring it up to you, like bring it to your attention. And thank you for your clarification.
Just want to let you know, it doesn't prevent yourself from being hacked, right? Log profiles doesn't prevent yourself from being hacked. So it just locks your profile, locks your pictures. But another alternative is ensuring that in your profile, making sure your privacy settings are set to high, right? Because a lot of people don't realize, like, when your privacy settings are actually not kind of set high. And so every other Tom, Dick, or Harry out there able to look at your pictures, able to kind of pull your pictures and stuff like that. But actually, if you set your privacy settings to high, they're not able to see majority of your pictures. You can actually set nearly all your pictures to only your friends or even a close group of people. They won't be able to see any of your posts. They won't be able to see any of your friends. And so I encourage all of you to actually do that privacy checkup and actually play around with your privacy settings, because if immediacy, if that's a worry, I mean, just to let you know, like, if you actually turn your settings high, privacy settings high, a lot of things can actually be unseen or not be seen by the public. And maybe you can even set it to a select group of friends or just your friends. And so that's something to think about right now, about privacy settings.
Thank you, Mr. Ten, for clarification. I just have a follow-up question. If you could,
Yep.
please respond to it. So, is it possible for any hacker, for instance, to hack to hack Facebook accounts without even knowing obviously the password, the passwords of the other individuals? So, is it really possible for hackers?
I mean, yeah, look, I mean, it's always possible. I think what hackers would need is at least the username or the login details, or the username basically, or the email address, right? From there, they can what we call brute force it, and but we have systems to prevent that as well. If people keep on spamming a certain password, then we'll also block. So yes and no. They can, but it's not as easy as you think it is. I think we'll stop it after maybe like 3 or 4 tries in that sense. But look, the best way to secure your account, and everyone in the room, turn on 2-factor authentication and have a strong password. Don't use your birthday. Don't use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't use, have a upper, lower case, different, symbols. Make it complicated. So that's very important. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ten. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Tan. Thank you very much for your presentation this afternoon. So my name is Sherry, and I'm with the People's Alliance communications team. In the room here today, we have several women who are standing, who will be contesting this year's elections for the first time. Yesterday, we heard about how the electoral system sort of promotes rock star candidates. And with our party leader just last week reached 100,000 followers. For the communications team, it can be difficult to try and leverage off his page to promote new candidates who we see have great potential and the experience to contribute in a bigger way if they do get into parliament. So I thought you might be able to advise the women in the room and the candidates who are going to vie for a place in this year's election as to how they can probably leverage off the pages of the rockstar candidates to sort of boost their personal pages or their official pages.
Yeah, I think every once in a while, where, again, using a term rockstar candidates, it'd be good for them to tag, like I am here with XXX candidate, tag people in the photos, just make sure they're kind of maybe even cross-sharing posts, but it'll be good to tag or cross-share these kind of posts every once in a while. I know you can't do it all the time, and that can help with pushing interest to these new candidates. But having said that as well, like, it's important, like, for these new candidates to ensure, some of what I spoke before, to be authentic, to be engaging, and because people at the end of the day, when they come to the page, if what is being posted doesn't interest them, it doesn't matter how much they're tagged with that rockstar candidate, that no one's going to like, right? You want to be, you're interested in the candidate, and that's why you're interested in liking them. And so it kind of plays hand in hand, like, solve for, of course, the page and the creativity and the profile that you want to kind of portray. And that's a strategy that each candidate will need to kind of decide upon, and then use these rockstar candidates once in a while. You can tag them, you can cross share posts. That would definitely help. I mean, for sure. Yeah. Any other questions? I know we've gone beyond time, so I'll leave it to the folks in the organizers to decide when I'm up to time, but I can stay a bit longer if there's any more questions.
We have one final question, Mr. Ten.
Okay.
I've heard this couple of days here at this, whatever this consultational. Yesterday I heard that politics about compromise. I heard that. And today, this afternoon, politicians are authentic. Authentic is about value, it's about integrity, I think it is. Compromise, I think, is a practical way of achieving your objective as a politician. And so you are pulled between, you have to face this contradiction in a way in a political career, especially we've heard that there are more women here standing for elections. So those issues come up. Can you comment on that? Just motivation of being authentic and of compromising. Thank you.
So, I mean, I didn't hear what was said, of course, before about the compromising part. But look, I think when I talk about being authentic, I don't necessarily think you need to compromise. I don't necessarily think you need to kind of, make your content or frivolize your content or change your views about anything. I think what I mean is that it's important to showcase that personality, right? And who you are as a person. Because, I mean, if you look at a lot of politicians in the region, whether or not Pacific Islands, New Zealand, Australia, I mean, politicians just love to post about the work they're doing on the ground, what's happened yesterday, what's happening tomorrow. They're just posting a lot about issues and everything, but they forget to tell people who they are, right? And what their passions are, the issues are, like, even when it comes to Mother's Day, celebrating your family, celebrating a certain festival, being authentic, that you are, as much as you are a politician, you have a figurehead, you are a human being. You know what I mean? And how do you kind of bring that out so that as a follower, I can resonate with you, I can connect with you on a human level, and so that when you're campaigning, I have a better affinity towards yourself. You know what I mean? Sometimes when you're too professional about things, there's a lack of connection. There's a lack of understanding who you are as a person. And it comes naturally for some people. Some people are very naturally inclined to just be personable, right? And for some others, it's a bit harder. And so that's what I mean about being authentic. So it's not about changing who you are. It's not about compromising. It's not about, being a different person. It's about how can you, make sure people know who you are as a person, and how can you bring that out in the tonality of how you post, in the branding. When you think about social media, at the end of the day, you have to think about that marketing 101. It is, at the end of the day, a branding of a personality. It is a branding of a person, right? And how do you want to kind of strategize? What is that brand that you want to push out? And how can you connect with users, or let users connect with you in that level? So there needs to be some thought out there. I don't know how often politicians really think about that, but it's important, right? Like, at the end of the day, it's campaigning. You need to connect with people. You need to connect with that brand in that sense. And so, so that's what I mean. Hopefully I answered that question. Yeah. Cool.
I believe we have no further
I think
questions.
if there's, I mean, look, it's been an honor and a privilege to be able to speak to all of you. I hope you got something out of it. And please, I will PDF my deck. I'll send it to the organizers, and they can send it to you all. Take note of the URLs that I mentioned. They are helpful links, but really happy to be able to engage with you all today.